Hi, everybody. Welcome to a rare Thursday webinar, not as rare as they used to be. I am Liz Downing from Teikametrics. I'm the e-commerce marketing manager here. I've got with me my friends Becky Trowbridge from Ecom Engine. Say hi, Becky.
Hey, everyone.
And Lauren Fairbanks from S&G.
Hi, everyone.
So we're here to talk to you today about words. It turns out that all three of us have a writing background when we came into e-commerce through that. So words brought us into e-commerce, and I guess in some ways they're keeping us here, which is pretty cool. So a couple housekeeping items before we get started. This session is being recorded. I repeat, it is being recorded, and it will be emailed to all registrants. That doesn't mean that you get to skip out, because if you're here with us live, I do encourage you to ask questions all throughout this webinar. We are not here to talk at you. We are here to have a conversation and hopefully give you some tips on how to make your words count for your listings and how to help that, drive your business on Amazon. So with GoToWebinar, the way it works is that you just submit the question in the question section. I am the MC as well as going to be participating in the conversation. So as your questions come up, if they're super relevant to what we're talking about right then I'll just interrupt us all and I'll ask your question. If not, then we'll do a Q&A at the end too. So without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about Teikametrics. Teikametrics is an AI data science powered platform that's here to help optimize your sales on Amazon and Walmart and eBay, brand new. We've got really great software, but we've also got a really smart services team that can help you figure out your ad strategy, make sure you're doing what you need to do, especially as Q4 comes up. It's super important to make sure you've got your ad strategy in place and that you've got your ad dollars in the right place. So that's part of it. But another part of it is the importance of your seller reputation, which is something that Ecom Engine does. Becky, why don't you take it from here and tell us a little bit about Ecom Engine and you?
Sure. I'm Becky. I'm the content strategist here at Ecom Engine, and we make software for Amazon sellers just to automate your day, make it easier for you to focus on activities that generate revenue, hopefully. So we have Feedback 5, which is our review and feedback software, and then we have Restock Pro, which is FBA inventory management software, and then Market Scout is a product research tool. So reviews are really like my wheelhouse. I obviously talk about all the other stuff too, but love reviews, as Liz said, all about words over here, obviously with the content background. So that's mainly going to be our focus today. And then Lauren has a lot of experience with words.
Yeah, so I am the co-founder and CEO of S&G Content Marketing. We're a content marketing agency, but we also focus very heavily on e-commerce optimization for Amazon and Walmart listings. So basically what we do is we kind of ride the fine line between making sure that your Amazon descriptions or Walmart descriptions are both searchable, they're targeting the right keywords, your content is optimized for those keywords, but is also really conversion focused. So once someone comes to your listing, they're able to really take away the features and benefits very quickly and make a decision and ideally convert on the spot.
And that's really where it all starts, right? You're in a hurry to get your listings up. You're in a hurry to get your inventory into Amazon FBA. You're in a hurry to get your ads going. You're in a hurry to get lots of reviews, but it all starts with your listing, right? If your listing doesn't have the right words, if your listing isn't compelling, if it has the wrong information, you're in trouble. If your listing has the wrong information, then you get bad reviews. If your listing has the wrong words in it, then the keywords that you're supposed to try to go for with your advertising, that's not going to work either. So it all starts with great listing copy that's also compliant to whatever your platform. But since we're talking about Amazon today, we can talk a little bit about Amazon's requirements in terms of title length, for instance, what belongs in a title and what doesn't, how you should craft your description, and how important are bullet points, what are the rules around bullet points, and all that kind of stuff. So Lauren, I'm just going to turn it back to you because I know that we recently worked together on a couple of projects, and I'm seeing some really, really long, drawn out titles. Can we talk about the pros and cons of a long Amazon title?
Yeah, it really is kind of it's down to really a science now. It can't be too short because then you're not going to be able to fit in kind of the key components of a title. And it can't be too long because we actually pretty often see a lot of listings that have titles that are over the Amazon required length of characters. And when you do that, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So a lot of people will try to stuff as many keywords and features and benefits and the brand name and the product name and everything into a title, when really they just kind of need to focus on your primary keyword, what the product is, and any kind of like major descriptors, or descriptors. So if there's like a specific color that people really care about, if there's kind of one defining feature or benefit that kind of is really the key feature or benefit, then you try to keep that in there. But otherwise, you want it to be long enough to be searchable, but short enough to be concise and get to the point.
So how close to that one, what is it, 250 maximum characters? That includes spaces, right?
It includes spaces, and typically we try to come in a little bit under that, just to give ourselves some breathing room. And the reality is that, like, think about when you're browsing through Amazon and you're looking at listings. If you see a listing that's so long, it just kind of feels overwhelming. Your mind can't really take it all in and process it and digest it in a really quick and easy way. And a lot of people focus on just the optimization, like optimizing all of your listings, your titles for Amazon. But a lot of times they kind of forget that at the end of the day, you're also writing descriptions for people, for shoppers. So you really need to kind of balance everything that you're optimizing for a search algorithm with the fact that real people are going to be reading these descriptions. And so a lot of times what can be useful is going through and looking at what some of your competitors are doing, or searching for products that you buy pretty often, and just seeing like which ones you're kind of drawn to. Like, look at how they've optimized their title. What are kind of the features and benefits and title words that they're using that really draw you to that product? Because a lot of times you just click on something, you don't really stop and think, why am I drawn to this title? Is it the color? Is it like a specific feature that I'm looking for? I need it to be like a certain width, or I need something to be like a certain size. And that can give you some really good ideas about companies that are doing it right and doing it in a way that is optimizing both for search and for people.
We have a great question already. That's awesome. So when you do experimenting like with A/B testing titles, are there certain elements that you focus on testing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Typically, when you look at A/B testing titles, you look at testing certain kind of descriptors of the product. So maybe different sizes versus different colors. You can try that. There are a couple of things that you'll always want to keep in there, but another thing that you should A/B test is the keyword. So typically with any kind of description, we look at a primary keyword and then typically 2 to 3 secondary keywords. So playing around with keywords is always a good idea, because you really kind of never know. You might think that this kind of primary keyword is going to be driving all of the traffic, but it might be just more competitive and a harder keyword to rank for. So a secondary keyword that is driving a little bit less traffic, but it's got less competition and you can rank higher on the first page of Amazon search results, might return much better results.
I love great answers to great questions. That's my favorite. So Becky, in the product review space, I know that you can't like actually talk about people's real product reviews, but like how often do you think you have a client that gets a negative product review because of something in their listing that isn't correct or isn't clear?
I'd say it's fairly common. I don't have any like stats on that, but I've certainly heard
I
just
don't need
stories
stats.
from people. Yeah, it definitely comes up. I think a lot of times sizes will change or packaging will change, and there's some kind of change with your actual physical product. And then sometimes you don't think to go back and update your listing. And then, you're really setting expectations with your listing. I'm sure Lauren has a lot to say about that, because it's huge. It's a huge part of the buying experience, right? Like, you can't go to a physical store and check out this product. So whatever you're saying in that product description at the top of the page is really, that and your images and video is all that you have to stand out from competitors. So if your listing description is inaccurate, we see a lot of negative reviews that come from people just saying, hey, I bought this because I needed it to fit in this space, and it wasn't the right size, or it was the wrong color. You said it was red and it's actually more purple. Color is actually, people are very picky about color. So I always like to say, if you can use like a Pantone, or if you have some kind of object that you can use in your lifestyle imagery that just makes it really clear what the actual color of your product is. I think that helps a lot, just setting that expectation early and making sure that whatever expectation you're setting is also what you're being consistent with it, right? Like you don't want to say something and then turn around and deliver a completely different experience, because we all know Amazon's all about that customer experience.
Well, when you think about that customer experience, that's something that Lauren was speaking to too, which is that, yeah, you've got to write smart listing copy and you've got to put your keywords in there and you've got to be optimized for search, but you also have to be optimized for search. Like when someone's actually looking for your product or looking for a product like yours. And if you take the whole advertising thing out of it and you just think about what listing copy, what titles are most appealing to a shopper. I mean, granted, you have to advertise on Amazon in order to get your listing in front of people. But then once they click on your listing, what about your description, your bullet points, your entire listing makes them buy? And part of that also is product reviews. A lot of the people that I've, when you get into this industry and you tell people what you do for a living, and then they look at you with that blank look on their face, and you have to kind of explain what you do from an Amazon shopper's perspective rather than like an insider. So I call it like the muggle world. When you don't think about Amazon from the seller perspective,
Yeah.
it's really hard to understand what we do and how important all these little things are on our side of things that I'm sure the average shopper takes for granted. Because of course you're supposed to have a well-crafted listing. Of course your product photography should be great. Of course you should have videos. You should have all good reviews. If a person can't pick it up and look at it themselves and make a judgment call, and they were relying on the listing and the reviews to make a decision, if the reviews are half good, half bad, then somebody's going to scratch their head and say, I wonder why that is. And Amazon hasn't made it readily convenient for sellers to address negative reviews, although there is something new in place that I hope Becky will talk about here in a minute. But most of the people I talk to that shop on Amazon look for things that are prime. They look for things that are showing up at the top of the page because they don't scroll to the second page. And then they sort by product ranking. They sort by product reviews. And if someone's got a whole lot of negative product reviews on a listing, half the time the people that I've talked to won't buy it. So anything you can do to make your listing communicate your product will definitely cut down on the amount of negative reviews you get, provided you've got a good product. So like, what's the first thing we tell everybody when you're going to sell on Amazon? Have a really good product. So Absolutely. We're assuming all of you have really good products. So it's up to you to use your words and your images to get the goodness of your product across so that you can get more sales on Amazon. But Becky, tell us what's new with Amazon in terms of addressing negative reviews.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. I think it kind of flew under the radar last December, with COVID, inventory crisis, everything going on. I think a lot of sellers weren't necessarily aware that Amazon actually stopped you from being able to respond to negative reviews on your product listings. So you used to be able to go in and say, hey, sorry about your experience, and then you could provide some context. A lot of times, like I think Liz, you and I had actually talked to someone that had one product that was like he just had one product and it had a negative review at the top, and he started getting a lot of helpful votes on the negative review, and it was just kind of showing at the very top of the page. And it was super frustrating for him because people would come to his listing, he had this hot product, and then the first thing they would see was a negative review, and it had like a video, and it just got a lot of attention. But he no longer had the ability to say, hey, actually, you're using my product incorrectly, which is why it caused damage. And if you had followed the instructions on my packaging, there are all kinds of issues that can come up. Like I'm sure that you all have seen, product compliance issues, people just misusing products, not understanding the use case. I've seen very scary things with electronics. There are a lot of reasons that, especially if you're a brand, you might want to be able to respond to a comment or to a negative review, especially. But Amazon has obviously had a lot of issues with fake reviews over the years, and they've gotten very, very strict. We talk all the time with Chris McCabe about review manipulation, reviews abuse. So they've gotten more strict with how you can actually communicate with buyers. And, that's come with more restrictions for buyer seller messaging. It also came with the removal of comments. And sorry, Liz, I'm probably giving more context than you were asking
Oh
for.
no, I think this
But
is all helpful because I know that the people that I've talked to, in the shopper world said that that was really helpful to see when a brand owner responded to a negative product
right,
review
like it
and
just
said,
shows you're paying attention,
right,
yeah, like you're taking care of your brand, you're taking care of your customers, you're there after Amazon talks a lot about the process of fulfilling the order, but when you go past that, I think that really shows a lot for your brand. So the really cool thing that Liz was wanting me to talk about is if you are brand registered, there's now a feature where you can actually respond to negative reviews. So if you have a 1 to 3 star rating and you're the brand owner, yeah, I think you have to have brand owner permissions. You can actually go into your customer reviews dashboard and you have the option to do two things. You can either send a message that allows you to send a refund or a replacement. It's a template from Amazon. You have no control over it, but you can at least offer that for the person that left you a negative review. Or you can send a message, also a template from Amazon, that basically just asks, hey, what went wrong? And then hopefully that will start a conversation and you'll hear back from the buyer about what their experience was or, what didn't meet their expectations. And
well, and
so
that
that's
is a
really
bit of an
cool.
improvement, right? Because
Yeah, it's
before,
huge.
when you could comment on a negative review, it's not like the reviewer would get like some sort of notification from Amazon
Right.
that you had so that there could be some dialogue there or they could get in touch with you. So this at least lets you send something that says, hey, how can I make it right?
Right.
That's Amazon compliant. Yay. Um,
Yes, huge.
yeah, so it's actually better. And that's kind of what we've seen Amazon do, right? So like before, back when I was doing what you do and living in review land, um, we used to tell people to make them feel better after Amazon stopped showing you the names of reviewers. You can comment and then shoppers will see it. And then that went away in December and they replaced it with this new thing that's a little bit better. Just like there were problems with buyer seller messaging and sending, which you still can do, and Amazon clarified that, but they introduced the request a review functionality, which
Right.
is templated. It's not customizable at all. So it's not quite as brand friendly, but it's definitely a compliant way. So Amazon's trying, I think, is my point,
Yeah.
trying to clean up the review space enough and kind of help favor on the side of at least give the brands a chance, right?
Yeah. And I think we're seeing more just trend wise looking ahead. It seems very clear to me that Amazon wants to control the customer experience as much as possible. Like we've seen, customer service by Amazon for your merchant fulfilled orders, and they're constantly testing these new programs. So there is something to unfortunately, a lot of people will bend the rules if they can. And I think that Amazon has just seen that happen time and time again. And unfortunately, it kind of gets to the point where it's like, okay, we know that brands need a way to communicate with customers. We don't necessarily want them to be able to say whatever they want, right? Because they might go in there and violate product review policy. Because what would you say if you weren't following, like if you didn't know Amazon product review policy, you had a negative review and you were communicating with that buyer, you might say something like, hey, I'll send you a replacement product. Could you update your review? You absolutely cannot say that under Amazon's review guidelines. But I think it's very easy for brands, especially brands that are newer to Amazon, but very established in the consumer world. They move to Amazon and they're kind of like, well, this is how we handle this situation everywhere else. So why do we have to follow different rules for Amazon?
We have
Yeah.
a couple questions and then I want to ask Lauren a couple things about how they might use product reviews. This is around one, so there's two questions around the responding to negative reviews. One person asks, is it only available for 1P, which I don't think is the case.
No, it's brand registered. So 3P brand registered or 1P brand registered. I think, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the other question is, can you do it as at 1P where the customer is technically Amazon's, not yours? Is it
Yeah.
available to 1P? We might have to check on that and get back to
I
you,
might have to
Stacy.
look into that. Yeah.
Yeah. But we do know that 3P brand registered folks can do it. Is there a step in this templated process where you can request that the buyer go and update their review? Probably not, Becky.
No,
No.
no. Like I just mentioned, that's violating Amazon's review manipulation policy. So they don't want you providing a new product or trying to make it right and then asking for a new review. If you're very, very lucky, you might get a buyer that just does that out of the goodness of their heart. But
that's why they don't let you type your own.
Like,
Go ahead.
I was going to ask if, by giving brands the option to kind of reach out and make it right with customers, have you guys seen an increase in people going in, leaving an updated review, or is that still kind of, pretty infrequent?
It's still pretty new. This was rolled out in, I think, June. So we're just now we've been spreading a lot of word about it because it was a new feature and a lot of people hadn't heard about it. So we're just now starting to see people. Fortunately, we don't see tons and tons of negative reviews. I think most of the reviews that people receive are positive, or at least, 3 to 4 stars. So I haven't really heard that much yet, but I think as it gets more popular and people are more aware of it, we'll probably see more of that. I hope. And I think that consumers, Liz and I talk about this all the time. A lot of buyers just don't understand why reviews matter and, how much they could be hurting. What's actually, I hear people all the time saying, I don't want to shop on Amazon because I want to support small businesses. And I'm like, Amazon is full of small businesses. And I think that a lot of people just don't understand how much their review of your product can actually impact your store. So I think as more awareness of that is coming up, I do think people are getting a little savvier. So, and I think part of that is from Amazon saying, hey, we support all of these small and medium-sized businesses, and we have all these tools for them. And then I think people are saying, wait, what do you mean by that? I thought everything was just coming from Amazon.
Yeah.
So
That's
in
funny.
2020, wasn't it like 2 million third-party sellers? I think it was. And then 95% of whom make less than, $1 million a year. So that's exactly a small business, right?
Yep.
A lot of them on Amazon. We have a question. We started an Amazon account a year ago, had a 1-star review from one sale since. The account has been inactive. Now we want to start again. Should we just get rid of the old account and create a new one? I think that you would probably have a hard time doing that. If you went to all the trouble of starting an account with all of your correct information, you're only allowed to have one account. So I would reactivate the account you have and then gather the resources you need to make that one review not matter so much. It's going to be a little harder for you, but I think you should probably stick with your original account. Does anybody disagree with me?
No.
Second thought.
So back to reviews, Lauren, when someone comes to you and says, my Amazon listings, ugh, I need help. I need to make more money on Amazon, and you go and you take a look at those listings. Do you look at product reviews as well to get ideas on how to optimize and update the listing?
Yeah. So the first thing we do always is keyword research, because we want to do our own keyword research, both keyword research from like a tool like Moz or Google Keyword Planner, just to kind of see what people are searching for in, like when they're searching in like Google or Chrome or whatever. And then also specific keyword research to Amazon to see what people are searching for in Amazon, because the reality is that sometimes people look for their specific products directly in Amazon. Sometimes they're just searching for it online, and then because Amazon has so much traffic, they're one of the first reviews or like first results that pop up. But keyword research is where we always start. And then once we've kind of targeted the primary and secondary keywords and we've started building out the features and benefits that we want to highlight, we go through the product reviews to see if there are features and benefits that people are calling out in a positive light over and over and over again, because that really gives you a good insight into, you might think that the reason that widget A is selling so well is because it's made of high quality aluminum, but you might notice on all the product reviews that everyone loves it because it is a specific color or a specific shape. So whatever kind of those sort of recurring features and benefits that people are talking about over and over again in reviews in a positive light, you really want to touch on those in your descriptions and your bullet points, because that is clearly what is driving happy buyers. And a lot of times it's just difficult as a seller to kind of step away from your company or your product and really get into the head of the consumer, because a lot of times the things that we as sellers think are really compelling and really interesting and really driving sales are just not the things that customers care about.
Yeah.
So to the folks asking about, is that functionality for responding to negative reviews available for 1P? I think according to what I've read, it's just sellers, not vendors, enrolled in an Amazon brand registry right now. I do think that Amazon wants good reviews on things that are in Vendor Central, so stay tuned. But I think for now, it's just 3P brand registered people who manage the brand catalog can use that functionality. But good question. So Cassandra asks, what kinds of tools do you use to sift through reviews?
For me?
I think you can both answer that in your own ways.
So, I mean, a lot of times when we're just looking at reviews to get kind of an idea of, what people like and they dislike, we really just go through the reviews that are on the product listing. We don't use any kind of specific tools, because a lot of the reviews that or a lot of the listings that we're updating don't have an overwhelmingly high number of reviews. So it's not terribly necessary to have a separate tool just to kind of go through and organize them and sift through them. We always look for things that are more recent, because like Becky said, there may have been changes to the product, changes to the packaging. So we want to make sure that we're looking at reviews that are most recent and are going to be the most relevant. But I don't know, do you use any tools, specific tools, Becky?
Well, before you do that, I had a customer that asked me to look at their product reviews to see if there were any potentially fraudulent. Like, did any of them look bogus? Like, because I said, here's what to look for if there are a bunch that come across in the same day and they all have kind of the same kind of language, and they had so many ASINs and so many reviews that I made them sign up for Feedback 5 so that they could actually download a report of the reviews and I could sort it by star rating. So Becky.
Yeah, I was just going to say the word cloud that Amazon generates at the top of your product reviews is really helpful also. I think Lauren might have touched on that a little bit, but just to reiterate, like Amazon actually pulls together commonalities, and then you can see those phrases that are coming up over and over again, and you can click on them and then see the reviews related to whatever feature, like, like Lauren had mentioned aluminum. Wow, that's a hard word, as a characteristic. And you could click on the word aluminum and actually see every review that mentioned aluminum right there on your product detail page. But yeah, as Liz mentioned, Feedback 5 makes it really easy to download all of your product reviews. We have a lot of really nifty graphs and analytics to help you see trends over time. You can actually see ratings as well, which I think is huge for a lot of people. Reviews, ratings are reviews, but reviews aren't ratings, right? Because a written review will give you more context, but a rating will impact you almost the same as a review. So it's really nice to be able to see all of that, but you can actually download or filter within Feedback 5 and see trends over time and kind of look for, what's going on in your negative reviews, what's going on in your positive reviews. And I think that a lot of sellers just overlook this as an opportunity, right? Like in marketing, we always want to know what our audience is thinking. And I think that reviews just give you direct insight to what the consumer is thinking about. And it's just a missed opportunity if you're not looking at those regularly. And Lauren, I actually had a question for you based on something that we had talked about before, which is, how do you handle it when the people searching don't necessarily know what the product they're looking for is called? Or, you're seeing like slang, for example. Like, how do you handle that in titles and descriptions to make sure that you're reaching the right audience?
That's a great question. And that is an issue we see a lot. And it kind of goes back to what I was just saying, that a lot of times it's hard to kind of get outside of your own head when you're kind of in the product day in and day out. Everything seems obvious to you, right? Like the features and the benefits. But you have to remember that a lot of times you're using industry jargon and terminology that customers are just not familiar with. So we actually recently had a client that had that specific issue, and he had this great tool that a lot of people use, but he was calling it a very specific thing, and he was using the correct term, but it was a technical term. And so what we had to do we started with keyword research again, but what we had to do was kind of put ourselves in the mind of the customer and think, what challenge or what issue is this product solving? And sometimes it really is like going back to the basics, like this product digs a hole. This product, it really is just about figuring out what action does your item do and what problem does your action solve, and then using that as a jumping off point to do keyword research, because 9 times out of 10, you'll type in something that seems super basic in a keyword research tool, and you'll see like a ton of search volume. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll find some really great long tail keywords that we can leverage. And usually long tail keywords, they don't have as much search volume, but the flip side of that is that they also don't have as much competition. So like a lot of your competitors are going after these really short tail keywords that are very focused on the product name or like what the technical name is, but they forget about all of these great long tail keywords. So what we'll do is we'll typically use those sometimes if the search volume is good enough is as the primary keyword. And we'll actually have that in the title, in the descriptions, in the bullet points, everywhere. We'll even optimize the image alt tags with those types of keywords. And we see really great results from that just because it's really overlooked. But it's kind of like one of those things where a lot of times it just, it's kind of the obvious thing that's right in front of your face that you just don't really recognize or really think about.
I like that you said that about long tail keywords, because in a lot of categories, main keywords are very, very competitive, very, very expensive. And you still have to bid on them. You still have to have some sort of strategy about that. But if you've got a good long tail keyword strategy that helps like bolster you with little ad spend and little competition, that helps you in the long run. We also have market intelligence in Flywheel 2.0, which is rolling out to everybody right about now, where we recommend top contributing keywords based on sales and impression volume. So when you work with someone who's doing your listing optimization and they're finding long tail keywords, and then you're finding out that your competition is using certain long tail keywords and their competition's beating you, then you've got a wonderful strategy that is a holistic strategy, and that you're creating your listing with the words that you need to beat your competitors, but you're doing it with someone who knows how to make those words readable for potential customers. So that's sort of what we mean by connecting the dots, in that if you are not the kind of person who really wants to dig in and learn how to write great listings, you need help on that, right? Like I am a writer. I don't know that I would write my own Amazon listings if I had an Amazon store.
And I think it's kind of one of those things too, where like sometimes even if you're a great writer and even if you enjoy writing the listings, it helps to have like an outside pair of eyes come in, if for no other reason, just to come in and like look at your product and say, this is what I think is interesting about your product, or this is what I noticed from it, because that kind of additional insight can be really helpful.
Well, and at the end of the day, Amazon is so super competitive that there's almost no time where you couldn't do something to optimize your listing, and there's almost no time that you couldn't do something to optimize your advertising strategy. And now, in terms of reviews, it's a struggle. We just had someone ask, what's the best way to increase reviews? We ask for reviews, but very few people actually provide reviews. Exactly. It's a problem. That's exactly what Feedback 5 was built for. And that's what Ecom Engine does all day, is help people try to get more reviews. But at the end of the day, I don't think that there's going to be a honest review culture in the consumer space of Amazon.com until more people understand who the sellers are on Amazon.com. That's one thing that I've been trying to do at Teikametrics, in addition to all these webinars that we do, is sort of highlight some of the brands that are selling on Amazon. Cameron, my coworker, is doing a big brand series on YouTube that I'll link to probably in the show notes, where he's interviewing great big brands. I'm about to launch a couple of videos that are smaller brands. They're not unknown, but they're smaller brands that are family owned or sole operator. It's a very small crew that's making this product or this group of products come to life, but I think that the more awareness there is in the consumer space that Amazon is a marketplace where many, you know, small businesses are competing for your eyes, your business, your dollars. And I don't want to go on a big rant, but I feel like it gets harder every year, you know?
I think that customers tend to be a little bit primed because, it's not like reviews on Amazon are anything new. I think people got used to reviews when people started creating like Google Places pages back in the day. And people, like you would go to your local coffee shop or your local restaurant, and they were really like, for a while, they would get really aggressive about asking for reviews because it really mattered when you were searching for a coffee shop near me or searching for a pizza place near me. So I think that customers are familiar with the review process and they know that it is important for small businesses. But I think you're right, because I think it's that kind of gap between seeing Amazon as this giant corporate behemoth and not really seeing all of the small business owners that are behind Amazon.
Well, think about how before you actually, I don't know about you, but there was a point in time where the scales fell off my eyes and I saw e-commerce for what it is. And it was when Ecom Engine contacted me in 2014 and said, could you edit this ebook? And it was about the post-purchase email you should send to your Amazon customers. And I was like, wait a minute, your Amazon customers? Are they writing this for Amazon? And like I did a little Googling and I was like, wait a minute, there are third-party sellers on Amazon. I had no idea. I thought everything I bought off Amazon was just sold by Amazon. I was clueless. Whereas eBay started out as an auction site and you're buying from people in Duluth, people in San Diego, people all over. You know that you're buying from people. But Amazon, it was never clear that you were buying from people. There's a little thing in the corner that says sold by brand fulfilled by Amazon or sold by seller fulfilled by Amazon. And that's your only clue when you're shopping. Even when somebody's saying their brand name, they've got their brand logo on things, they've got their brand name on things, it's still so easy for that to just completely drop out of your conscious mind because the marketplace is what it is and it's structured the way it is.
Well, and it doesn't make it any easier that when you go to a Whole Foods, you know that that's owned by Amazon. Now Amazon is building like actual retail stores, which is going to confuse even more people too. So there really is this huge need to educate consumers on the fact that there are third-party sellers on Amazon. And I think it is going to still be a little challenging because you're right, Amazon doesn't make it easy to kind of differentiate between the products that they're selling. I mean, they're selling competing products right there by small businesses.
Well, and Amazon has done some things, right? So like last holiday season, they did the small business spotlight thing. That was cool. That was cool that they did that. And now with Amazon Live and Amazon Post, there's an opportunity for smaller brands to play in that space and go up
But if
against
you're
some of
not
the
brand
bigger brands.
registered, you need to be brand registered.
Oh yeah. I mean, bottom line is that you've got to be brand registered in order to really play the game. I'm doing a webinar later this year with a really, really smart agency based in Europe that it's a former Amazonian. He said Amazon's a board game. If you don't know the rules, you can't win. And if you don't follow the rules, you get kicked out of the game, as we know, because we know Chris McCabe and we've heard the horror stories. But we were having an all hands meeting the other day, and we have several employees that are former Amazon. And this one brilliant guy said, it's not just that Amazon's a board game, it's that every different part of Amazon is a different board game. So brand registry is its own board game, but then advertising is its own board game. But listing creation, actually creating your account, that's a whole, because there are so many different departments at Amazon that don't really talk to each other because they don't need to, because the system is in place and there are spiders and AI and robots and psychics, and it's bananas. It's like nothing that's ever existed in this world, but it's a huge opportunity. And if you're an e-commerce seller, you should absolutely be selling there. It's just hard to figure out how to do that. But a solid listing, a solid advertising strategy, and a good plan to get more reviews and an attempt to get more reviews. So the way I always explain to people is, yes, in the old days, they used to say if you got one review out of every 100 orders, that was good. You're doing good, better than average. And when I was with Ecom Engine, we obviously did better than that. And we found that people who request reviews get more reviews, you know, because you don't get them if you don't ask for them. And most people don't like to say anything unless they're unhappy. So asking every single review, asking every single order when you know you've got a good product and you know you've explained it properly in your listing and you know that, you know, you're confident, asking every order is a good way to get more reviews. It's just like you're not going to get a ton. And it's frustrating to see these people that are getting like hundreds of reviews in the same day. They're cheating and they're going to get caught, but they're not caught right now. And in the meantime, they're beating you. So you got, you know, it's just, oh, we have an actual keyword question. Lauren, I want us to, let's give this. So Cassandra asks barrel cactus, right? So she's selling a barrel cactus, but the keywords are for round cactus. But for, I would assume, and Cassandra, feel free to comment more in the questions. I would assume that for cactus aficionados, they're looking for barrel cactus, but the keywords that you're finding that people are searching for is round cactus. So do you do a combination of the two, or do you not use barrel cactus at all?
You can use a combination of the two. I mean, you need to make sure that you know what your primary keyword is. And for your primary keyword, I would suggest that you choose the keyword that has a combination of, you know, either low or medium competition, something that you can reasonably rank for, and a decent amount of search volume. So you're kind of just evaluating each one individually. But I would say, I mean, again, it kind of goes back to thinking about, you know, thinking about putting yourself in your customer's shoes. Like, you're right. People that are kind of plant aficionados, they'll know what a barrel cactus is and they'll search for it. But remember that for the last 2 years, I mean, I think a huge number of people have turned to taking care of plants and gardening as kind of a way to relieve the stress and the anxiety of being stuck at home in the pandemic. I mean, I count myself as one of those. Like, I've gone
Wait, she says
completely
it's artificial.
yeah, I've gone completely nuts with plants. I have like an entire sunroom full of them. But like even I don't know the names of all like a bunch of plants. So, you know, I guess what I'm saying is don't discount, you know, people looking for kind of these descriptor keywords like around cactus. Like you might have someone who really is a plant aficionado, but maybe they don't have a deep knowledge of succulents.
She actually says it's artificial.
Okay. And
So
so with that, I would actually say that I would think that people that are purchasing artificial plants are probably people that are not plant aficionados and that are maybe interested in interior design, but don't necessarily have a green thumb or want to learn about plants. So I could see using less technical terms for something like that.
right, like I knew that I wanted a particular type of fake plant for my office, but I
Yeah.
didn't know what the name of this was. So I looked for fake leafy plant on Amazon.
But I mean, that's kind of a perfect example of what people really are searching for, because a lot of times, that 9 times out of 10, I would say, they are searching for these very non-technical keyword phrases.
And Liz, I'm sorry, but I have to put on my compliance hat for a moment and just make a disclaimer that anytime we're talking about reviews, you should never, ever, ever be buying reviews, first of all.
Oh no, gosh.
If you're requesting reviews with third-party software, make sure it's in the Amazon App Store. You can request reviews. You can use buyer-seller messaging. You can use the request a review button. You can use software like Feedback5 to automate either of those, but make sure that if you are sending a more branded, customized message through buyer-seller messaging, make sure that you're always following all the communication guidelines, the product review policies. There are pages and pages of documentation that you need to be familiar with. And we actually have a great resource on that that Liz might be able to include in the show notes as well, because it's a huge topic and I don't want to distract us from talking about listings, but just make sure that if you are requesting reviews, you're always following, like Liz said, you're playing the review board game on Amazon and you're not doing anything to try to pass go too fast.
Is that the getting more reviews guide?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it in the chat.
All
I
right.
actually have a question about getting reviews. Do you find that kind of cultivating a community, like a social community outside of Amazon, helps to build up kind of those really great brand advocates that will leave reviews and that will like be really active when they're purchasing from you, especially if they're repeat purchasers?
Yeah, I think that's crucial for brands that are really serious. I think they often have an outside community. A lot of them are selling on multiple marketplaces, but also on something like WooCommerce, or, they have their own site as well as, being on Walmart and eBay. And if you do have your own site and your own email list, you can email those people and send them to Amazon. Amazon, actually, Liz could probably give more color to this than I could, but they recently introduced the brand referral bonus. So they're actually encouraging you to advertise off of Amazon and send people to Amazon to make the purchase. And then they're giving you money back, like offsets FBA fees. I mean, that's not, I think it's 10%. It's not a huge amount, but you can absolutely bring people in from outside of Amazon. And you could ask them to, talk about your product outside of Amazon, but definitely not through buyer seller messaging.
Well, and you have to be careful even off Amazon on how you talk about Amazon reviews, right? So even if you had your own email list, if Amazon saw that you said, hey, go leave me a positive review on your
I would
purchase,
never,
you would get in big trouble because that's against policy. Even, you have to be very careful about how you handle it. But driving external traffic to Amazon is never a bad thing to do. And obviously, the more customers you have, the more chance you have of getting more reviews.
Mm-hmm. And it can help increase your rankings. There's so much competition on Amazon that if you have an audience off of Amazon and you're bringing all those people with you, like, it's just going to help you show up hopefully higher in the search rankings and hopefully improve your ad strategy and tie into everything that we're talking about here, connecting all those dots. The other thing I wanted to mention really quick is product inserts. So kind of in between off Amazon and on Amazon, I guess. But if you have inserts in your packaging that are requesting a review, there isn't like an explicit set of guidelines for a product insert versus just regular asking for reviews over email. But make sure that you're still following all those communication guidelines for that too, because I know Chris McCabe has said he's seen some really big sellers get into a lot of trouble over that. And you don't want your inventory pulled right before Q4. Like, that is everyone's worst case scenario right now. So
the brand referral bonus program, if you guys don't know about that, that would just rolled out this summer, right? But basically, brands drive traffic to Amazon and then get a 10% bonus from any sale that comes from outside Amazon.
Yep.
So, and if you're not brand registered, you can still join Amazon Associates, but it's just not as good.
Yeah.
We do have a question. If you're a third-party brand registered, how would you handle a seller using your images without authorization? Brand Guard, Joe Kovacs. I did a webinar with him last year, but just Brand Guard, BRANDGUARDE.com. Ask for Joe, and he can help you. What they do is they help find unauthorized sellers on your listings. So he can send a cease and desist that usually will scare the person that's using your images, but he also has other tactics that will make them not want to use your images anymore. He's very honest, but he's persistent. So contact Joe.
Important.
What's a good way to let customers know that we fixed a problem that was mentioned in negative feedback? Would you update your listing? So would you actually address?
That's a good question. So it kind of depends on what the issue is. If it's something very specific, like if there was kind of not necessarily a defect, but the way a product was designed wasn't ideal, then I would actually update in the listing. I would talk about like the way the new design solves a very specific challenge. If it was an issue with quality, where, maybe like because of materials or because of the way that items were being packaged, it was being damaged in transit. I don't know that I would put that in the listing because there's really not a good way to talk about that.
This product was really bad before, but it's much better now. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to bring that up with new customers. I mean, they're probably going to see it in the reviews. But really what you need to do is just focus on getting new reviews on an updated product and pulling that in, because that will address the quality issue that you had previously.
I think it's also important here to mention customers' questions. I think that's a piece of the listing that often gets overlooked, but you might be able to, depending on the questions that have been asked on your listing, you might actually be able to go in and leave an updated comment on the question that says, oh, by the way, we changed our packaging. So that might be a way to address what Lauren just brought up without actually having to change your listing. So at least it's being addressed somewhere, and people that are really looking into it might see that, but maybe not new people.
I really read the questions.
That's a really good point.
I love the questions.
I do too. I really read those.
It's crazy
And
how technical they can get also. Like I bought something for a tent one time and I was relatively new to camping, and then Amazon kept sending me emails saying like, "Oh, there's a question about how this tent fly works. Like, can you answer it?" And I couldn't, but I was really interested to see what other people said. Um, so yeah,
I have
sometimes you
this
can learn a lot.
I have this snack that I like to buy that's not even, they're not Prime, but I wait. Um, because I like this snack and I want to support their Amazon business. And I got asked, it's a like a meat product, but it's chicken. It's Mighty Spark. I'll just say I like them. I like their chicken snacks. But somebody asked, what is the casing made out of? Because it's like, kind of like beef jerky-ish, but softer, and made out of chicken. And I didn't know the answer, but I'm like, I have it on my to-do list to go look at the ingredients and find out and answer that question. I have the email saved because you can't log into your Amazon account and see the questions they've sent you. I wish you could, because I would go and like make it a point to go answer all of them, eventually, the ones
Was
that I
there a
could.
perfect example of a brand ambassador, like someone who is really dedicated to a brand? It's so important for sellers to cultivate that community. It really is, because it can make such a huge impact and such a huge
It really can. I mean, and like whenever I see a new brand sign up for our services at Teikametrics, if it's a brand that I like and use, then I'll comment to the person that brought them in. I'll be like, oh, I like this, this, and this about them, and I met the owner of their company at a thing one time, and here's a picture of the product that I have in my front yard or in my kitchen or whatever. Like I get all geeky about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
Martina said thanks, by the way, for the advice about updating your listing when you fixed a problem with a product. So I guess I should talk a little bit about advertising since we're here. So obviously, when you go to someone like Lauren and say, "Hey, I need to update my listing," she's probably going to ask you for the keywords that you're targeting in your advertising, because obviously your listing optimization strategy needs to go along with your ad optimization strategy. Um, Keywords are the lifeblood of an Amazon seller. Without the right keywords, you absolutely can't be successful. So I'll just plug marketplace optimization through market intelligence with Flywheel 2.0 is going to really make that a lot more helpful, because you're going to get suggested keywords based on based on the sales and impression volume from different advertising campaigns. So it will create a continuous loop of search terms that you can track against, and then you see the brand coverage of search. So you've got a keyword that you're targeting, and then you can actually go in and see which brands have the most, share of that keyword on Amazon at the time. And then that helps you develop your competitive strategy a little bit better. I'm seeing a lot of great results in the brands that I talk to on a regular basis, about their in a nice way, their competitive targeting and how they're going after competitors with some of their ad. So I feel like with Q4 coming, with ad products being what they cost what they cost. Like DSP is super expensive, but it can be super effective. It depends on the brand. But with Q4 coming right now, it's September 9th. If you're watching this later, your listings need to be optimized by now. If they're not, they need to be optimized like tomorrow or the next day Saturday. But you need to have a solid review request process in place, because your sales are going to increase, but you're going to need to make sure that's Amazon policy compliant. Otherwise you'll get suspended in Q4, and that will be real bad. But you also need to make sure that your ad strategy is locked in. You know exactly how you're going to pivot. You know exactly how you're going to optimize what you're already doing so that you can roll with the punches through what's going to be a very uncertain Q4. It's going to be a wild ride, folks. So I encourage you to ask for help. The people at Teikametrics can definitely help you get your ad strategy straightened out and can help you get through the quarter making the right decisions about your ad spend. Because Becky and I just did a panel yesterday for the Seller Velocity Conference. If you're watching us live, 2 weeks from today, there's a Seller Velocity Conference at our office, Teikametrics office in Boston, Massachusetts. And if you want to come to it, email me, ldowning@teikametrics.com, and I will tell you how to get tickets. But we were just on a panel yesterday, and everybody was talking about inventory, right? Because inventory, we're not here to talk about inventory today, but hold on to your hats because inventory is going to be a big issue in Q4. So you want to spend the right amount of money on the services you need. You want to spend the right amount of money on your advertising. You're going to want to save some of your budget to really handle some uncertainties that might be cropping up this quarter. This is a great question, and I think that we should all think about it. Is there any specific steps or ways you can create long tail keywords besides using keyword tools? Well, I think you mentioned one, Lauren, was just reading reviews.
Reading reviews of your competitors, you can kind of get a sense of what keywords they're targeting. But I would say that keyword tools are really critical because you can't get a sense of what the search volume is for specific keywords when you're just looking at you're just looking at the keywords that your competitors are targeting. You can kind of gauge whether or not they're doing a good job by seeing which ones are, like doing a keyword search for kind of common keywords in your industry or for your product, and seeing which listings are ranking in organic search the highest. But again, there's a lot of different factors that go into ranking, so it's really hard to kind of definitively nail down if they're targeting the right keywords or not. So I would say always use a keyword tool. Most of them, some of them are free. If they do cost money, sometimes you have to pay for like a really limited subscription. They're usually really cheap. We use Moz for just looking at kind of general keywords, but Moz also has the ability to filter by just Amazon searches as well. And I think Moz, I think they start out at like somewhere around like $40 or $50 a month. So even if you say want to buy a 1 month subscription and use it quarterly to kind of double check your keywords, I think it's worth it.
I agree.
Well, and people will try to sell you keyword services, and a lot of times if you're working with someone who is doing ad optimization, or you're working with somebody who's doing your listing optimization, they're going to recommend keywords to you, including long tail keywords. So
yeah, if you're working with any kind of optimization expert, they will have tools that they pay for, that they license, that they'll have access to. If you're doing it on your own, you should always use a keyword tool, just because keywords are not something that you want to mess up or choose the wrong one. It's really kind of part of the foundation of having a successful listing. So it's one of those things that I would not suggest screening.
I think that went great. We're right almost at the top of the hour. We had lots of questions. I thank you so much, Becky and Lauren, for joining me. Let's do this again soon. Oh wait, Liz asked, how can we check competitors' use of keywords? Liz, get in touch with me, because I can help you with that. If you want a little demo of Flywheel, we can show you what competitor keywords look like in that tool. But there are other ways you can do it and other tools out there. I just don't want to mention them right now. It's not in my best interest, but I'm happy to get you a walkthrough of how you could do that with Flywheel by Teikametrics. So Lauren with SMG, thank you very much for your time today. Becky with Ecom Engine, thank you. Thank you to everyone who attended live today. Again, this session has been recorded. It will be emailed to you. If you've got any questions, you can get in touch with us. I'll make sure to include our contact information, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.